Mr. President, a number of us, myself included, have been arguing since January, ever since we arrived here and were sworn in this very room, that the national debt is a permanent problem. The almost $15 trillion that we now owe as a nation is permanent. It's going to take a long time to pay off. There are people who are not yet old enough to vote. There are people who will be born in a few years, who are not even here, who will one day have to assist in paying off that debt. Now, the fact that this is a long-term problem means that it requires a long-term solution. That's why we've been saying all along that we ought not raise the debt limit yet again. Extending our national debt by another $2.5 trillion, more or less, without a permanent solution in place. Herein lies the problem. It's difficult or impossible for one Congress to come up with a set of budget numbers that will necessarily bind future Congresses. We can come up with a plan to cut $2 or $3 trillion over a 10 or a 15-year period, but if future Congresses don't want to go along with that, they can find a way out of that. This has happened again and again, as we've seen with Graham-Rudman-Hollings, as we've seen with the PAYGO rules. Congress becomes a walking, breathing waiver unto itself. We need a permanent solution. This is why we've settled on the need for a balanced budget amendment. Now, as my distinguished colleague, the junior senator from Kentucky, has just pointed out, there is no intransigence in our position. Those of us who identify with the Republican Party, those of us who identify with the Tea Party, are people who want a solution. We were sent here with a mandate by voters, a mandate that says the federal government is too big and too expensive. Now, resistance to this message from the other side of the aisle, as vehement as that resistance may be, is not genuine if what it says is that this insistence, the insistence for a balanced budget amendment, is itself reflective of an unwillingness to compromise. There are myriad opportunities to compromise within that general framework. It's a reminder to us of the fact that no matter how much we might be tempted at times to demagogue this issue, no matter how tempting it might be for certain members of this body to cast blame elsewhere, they cannot escape one simple fact, which is that the American people are demanding more. They're demanding that we spend less. They're demanding that we stop this barbaric practice of perpetual, massive-scale deficit spending. Why? Well, because it erodes individual liberty. It takes money that people have not yet made and spends it and obligates them to repay it, in some cases before they're old enough to vote, in other cases before they're even born. And so we need a permanent solution. When we put something in the Constitution, it serves as a permanent reminder of the fact that we as a people have made a decision and we're going to move forward. Not everybody will necessarily agree as to how best we should move forward, having made that decision. But the American people, overwhelmingly to the tune of 75%, support the idea that we should amend the Constitution to restrict Congress's deficit spending power. We've offered that. We've extended that. Republicans have now submitted no fewer than 2 bills that have passed the House of Representatives to address the debt limit issue, both of which have stopped dead in their tracks over here without further opportunity, most importantly, without a response by the Democratic Party in the Senate or otherwise. So if there is either party in this discussion that is refusing to compromise, it's not ours. If there is any group that has failed to offer solutions, it cannot be described as the Tea Party movement. I think there is common ground among the American people generally that we should balance our budget. Not everyone agrees about how we balance the budget, what should be cut, but they do agree that we should balance it. That being the case, that's where we ought to focus our efforts, is on amending our law of laws, that 224-year-old document that has fostered the development of the greatest civilization the world has ever known. Change it, again, to improve it, to restrict Congress's borrowing power. The plan proposed by the Democrats that's now about to come before us puts our budgeting process on autopilot, doesn't require another budget for 2 years, preserving the ability of Obamacare to fund itself without a single additional debate in Congress. This is wrong. This is not the right approach. I object to it for that reason. I, along with my other Republican colleagues, are prepared to vote on this and vote no on it right now. We are not the ones delaying this vote.